Hey guys, Jen Engle here for Viva Las Vegas Stamps with a time to stamp video. We're going to be using some garbage to spruce up some VLVS stamps. So I'm starting out in my Strathmore watercolor journal, and I'm going to add some gesso to my pages just because I want to do a reduction stenciling technique and it works better on a gessoed surface. So I'm just going to go over my whole sheet with some Liquitex gesso until I'm happy with the coverage. I'm going to start out with some golden fluid acrylic in teal, and I'm going to spray my page with water, really soaking it because I just want a really light wash. So I'm just going to add some of that paint on there and really move it around with the water. I'm going to tilt my book so that it moves around, spray more water, just until I'm happy with the way it kind of looks. I'm also going to dab some of that water off, make sure it stays away from my spine. And I'm going to partially dry that first layer, but while there's still some wet spots, I'm going to dab that away with a paper towel because I really enjoy the way the texture gets when you partially dry something and you have the gesso in the background that maybe isn't an even coverage throughout the whole background. You can kind of see that spot that I have there, and I really enjoy that. So then that's going to be completely dry when I go in with my next step, which is some Dina Wakley paint and lappies, and I'm just going to slap that all over my page, making sure it connects to all four edges but doesn't completely cover the whole page. And then I'm going to take this Dina Wakley stencil and a wet baby wipe and remove the paint from the open spaces of my stencil. And as I'm removing the paint, I realized that it was like a little more pristine than I wanted it to look. I wanted it to look a tad grungy. So I'm just going to take a clean baby wipe, not the one that I used to wipe the paint away with, and just kind of try to obscure some of those edges by lightly rubbing away the paint. And some of it dried and some of it didn't, so it kind of helped to lend to that grungy look. And then I'm going to dry that, and over top of that I'm going to add this stencil by Dina Wakley. I believe it's called Spill, and I'm just using some white gesso. White paint would work, but I like white gesso better. So I'm just going to stencil the word paint over and over in the background. And then I'm going to work on my focal image. So this is the Banksy Mirror Admirer stamp. It's a two-part stamp. It has like a guy and then this mirror, but I'm going to make it into like a painting frame. So I'm going to color it in with my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, and it's stamped on some Bristol Smooth cardstock because that really works well with the Zig markers. So I have number 62, 64, and 65, which are just some brown colors. And my coloring technique is super simple. I just go in with the darkest color, then blend that out a little with the medium color, and then blend all of that out with the lightest color and fill in the rest of the white spaces. And then if I'm not happy, I kind of go back in with some of the darker colors. Like here, I'm going to go in with the darkest number 65 and just add some kind of like wood grain kind of squiggly lines, and then blend that out with the lightest color. And then also go back in with the medium color as well. And then I'm going to take my craft knife and I'm just going to cut out the center of that frame because I want to put something in there and I need the frame to sit on top of what I'm going to do. I'm going to trim off some of that, the white areas that I didn't cut away so well with the craft knife, and then I'm just going to trim the rest of the frame out. And then to obscure the white edges, because the Bristol cardstock is pretty thick, I'm just going to take my darkest brown marker and run that around the edges to cover up those white paper bits. And then I did a whole bunch of frames. Oh, here's the guy that goes with the stamp set, or the stamp. I did a whole bunch of frames. I didn't know how many I was going to use. I decided to just use 3 right in the middle of my page, so my guy can be centered kind of looking at them. And then I have these little white pieces that I'm going to use to go in the middle of my frames, and I just want to add a little color to them so they're not just like plain white. So I just used a light gray, and then in the one upper corner I used a little bit of a darker gray, and then I'm just going to blend those colors out with a water brush that has clean water in it. And then I'm going to add some gel medium, and you know when you leave paint dry on like your nonstick craft sheet or your palette and you scrape it up, sometimes it looks really cool. Well, that's what this is. So I was trying to make these paintings look like they were like abstract paintings, and I thought it'd be a really fun way to use up something that I would normally just throw away. So I'm just going to take some gel medium and place those pieces down. The majority of the paint is orange because it complements the blue in the background very nicely. And then I'm going to add some bits of some other colors that I had on my sheet as well. And I'm just using the gel medium to stick everything down. And then once I'm happy with those tiny painting compositions, I'm going to add gel medium over the whole thing and a little bit of gel medium to my frame and just stick that right over top, which is why I needed to cut away the center of my frames earlier. And then any white pieces that are hanging over I can just trim. So then I'm going to place them on my background, and my guy is kind of levitating there. So to ground him, I'm going to add some polka dot washi tape, black and white, and like a Dina Wakley scallop that kind of matches the colors in my paintings. But it was kind of competing with the painting, and I didn't want too much focus to go on that washi tape, so I just obscured it a little bit with some white gesso. And then for a little bit more subtle interest in the background, I'm going to do some journaling with my white Posca paint pen in the ultra fine tip. And then I can, I'm going to add a little bit more subtle texture going on in the background with some Ranger texture paste and this speckle stencil by Tim Holtz. And I'm just going to add a little bit to the upper left and lower right corner. And a little bit in the center there, just a little. And then I'm going to glue my paintings down with some glossy accents to really make sure they stay put. And my guy has some clear, like, dimensional tape on him, so he's like sticking up a little bit from the background. And then for a final finishing touch, I'm going to add some black splatters. And normally I don't care if the black splatters get on like my focal images, but in this case I didn't want the splatters to mess up the way my paintings looked, so I'm just going to mask them off with some scrap paper, add my splatters, and that is it for this page. Thank you so much for watching. The Banksy stamp, if you are interested in it, is linked down below if you're watching on YouTube. The blog post down below. If you're watching from the blog post, it's up above and down below in the post. So thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye, guys.